and welcome to Talking XP. I'm Johnny, the host, along with Ryan here today, and today we are going to be interviewing Jack Duncan about his one-shot adventure, The Faerie Coffins. Jack, how's it going today?
Yeah, pretty good, yeah.
Good, right on. And if you don't know already, we actually had the great opportunity to play Jack's one-shot last Wednesday on our Twitch channel. Since then, we've actually posted it to YouTube, so go ahead and check that out after this. But let's just go ahead and get started. First off, did you see the stream? What did you think?
Yeah, I tried to watch it live, and then it hit about 5 a.m. my time, and I ended up falling asleep. But yeah, I caught it again on the VOD, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really, the only other times I've seen it played is when I've been DMing it, and that just feels like a regular session that I'm massively over-prepped for. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun actually seeing other people experiencing it and seeing the wee twists you put on it with your own style and stuff. It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Right, that's actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, you saw that there were a few things that I was watching you live tweet as you were watching it.
Which was awesome. We both enjoyed reading through all of those. It was great fun.
It was so great just seeing reactions to certain things. I know that you were like, oh man, Bovik, it should be called the
Blight Slayer.
The Blight Slayer, right? And we were like, yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was insane. But that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, is that from that stream, I know that there was a few things that I know I changed, and I was just wondering what you would have actually thought of, when watching certain things that might have been different from the source material.
Well, the biggest thing you changed, and actually I might, when I next do an update, include that as a alternative suggestion thing, was you had Peony speaking straight away, and she's mute initially, and that, I think it's a fun puzzle if you're taking more than one session over it, but parties spend a long time trying to work out how to communicate with her, and I think I might put in a wee suggestion that if you're doing it on a one shot, to just have her speak it, because it did cut a bunch of time off of it, and I've struggled. It's been 6-hour sessions I've done for one session. Normally it's a 2-session game. That was the biggest difference I noticed. Other than that, it was just a few additional sort of scene descriptions and stuff, which is kind of the whole idea, you know?
Right, yeah.
But yeah, no, you didn't do anything that jumped out at me, and I was like, he's ruined it. It's spoiled. You know?
Well, that's good. That's good. As long as I didn't mess anything up, that's always the goal. Was there anything that you saw in the way that I did run it that you possibly would have changed back to a certain way or anything like that? I'm just curious.
I was a bit worried that Peony having access to spellcasting was going to break stuff, but then she did get, spoilers for the one shot if you've not watched it, she did get insta-killed.
Just straight up. I didn't expect it to happen, but then at the same time, I should have expected it to happen. She had a very low AC and 1 HP. Yeah.
Yes, Sabrina had some bad luck that session. I felt real bad for her.
Yes.
But also, how often do you really play with 1 HP creatures, in an encounter like that? So I totally understand not really expecting it, because I know I don't really run that except for familiars for wizards. You don't really get a whole lot of 1 HP things out there typically.
Yeah, no, it's not common. Generally they're invisible unless
right,
they're hanging out socially. That was a very rare combination of situations. I like the idea of having a PC piloting her if they're gone, because obviously her character was just off as a wee doll, so not really much you could do,
Right. And nobody knew that either. I couldn't be like, hey guys, go check out the first floor because, that you might want to check the coffins out. But, I couldn't do that as the DM. But I have to give props to Zach, because we had a little inside party chat going on through the whole thing just to make sure that everything was going well with the stream and all that stuff. But Zach was like, yo, have Sabrina take control. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then that's when we finally decided to do that. And then I killed her too.
Straight away. Yeah.
So
Hey, at least she helped out doing the spell magic in that room. That made it so we didn't get poisoned. So.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
That floor, I got so worried watching that because I was like, are they going to TPK themselves by just wrecking the entire place? Yeah.
So then, do you have any helpful tips for any of the DMs that may pick up this adventure after watching the stream or even just in general?
Yeah, I'd say the way you run the dolls themselves is probably the trickiest thing about DMing this adventure. Just making sure that they themselves are not smart, but Dela is, and she will only be sending them after the party. Actually, it was a pretty good how-to guide, the way you ran it, when they're alone, when they can close a door, when someone's at low HP. You could very easily just have the dolls rush the party all at once at the start, and they'll just die. They have no HP at all. They'll die so quickly.
Right.
Beyond that, you want to make sure the party's pretty weak before fighting Dela, otherwise they'll kill her real fast. She's designed for a boss fight at the end of a pretty grueling slog through the house, and if the party kind of rushes their way forward and manages to get through the door, they get real lucky, they find their way down, you might want to fiddle behind the screen a bit and make her stronger. Otherwise, it'll be over very quick.
Yeah, I think the way that we ended was absolutely perfect because as the DM, I was so scared that I was about to kill everybody, and it turned out at the very last moment, just everything seemed to work out for the party. And I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it was super stressful during that last 30 minutes or so.
I forget who it was who called out the idea of there being a secret door. But there totally is. That's in the module, that there is a secret door. If Nelfie's conscious, he'll show you it. But them finding that might have saved them. I'm not sure how far along the counter you were for the place collapsing, but it's something like 20 D6 bludgeoning damage if the place collapses on you. It's just insta death for a first level party. Yeah,
for sure.
I remember reading that in the adventure that Nulfie would actually show you that secret door, and then that's when it was Zach's character Ewad was like, "Is there any secret door here?" And I was like, "Do an investigation check," and then he got a 22 or something like that. I was like, "Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah, sure."
Yeah,
and
that'll do. Yeah.
So, but
as a DM, I wouldn't allow them to find it from the outside. Right at the start of the adventure, I look for a secret door. Oh, you find it. Yeah, she's down there. Adventure over,
Yeah, of course not. But cool. Just in general, some questions. How long have you been playing D&D, or at least TTRPGs in general?
I played a little bit when I was quite a bit younger. I got the 3.5e book, mostly because it looked real good and I was very bored at my grandparents' place. And I played that a little bit with some of my friends and got the rules horribly wrong and stuff, but one or two times, and barely at all, really. My first time properly playing was about 3 years ago with 5th edition. We started up a weekly game, which is actually still going. We've just been doing it weekly.
Cool, that's
all the way
great.
Through. We've lost some players, swapped others out, and all that. But we did a full 2-year campaign, 1 to 20, that I DM'd, which was amazing.
That's rare.
Yeah.
Congrats to you.
I would bring that up casually in conversation when I was first getting into stuff, and people looked at me as if I was lying. I was like, no, it's a thing.
Was it a homebrew, or were you playing a module?
Yeah, no, it was homebrew, because me being a first-time DM, I thought, oh yeah, I'll homebrew a whole world. That's fine, I've been doing creative writing and the likes for a long time, and so I basically just threw all of my half-formed world-building ideas at them, and yeah, there were some tonal problems, because when I first started, it was real funny in a sort of Monty Python-esque sort of way. There was talking bushes running around everywhere, and then as we sort of played more, we wanted a more sort of high-stakes political intrigue thing. But it does mean there's this one island that's just really zany, which they started on, but the rest of it is pretty Forgotten Realms-esque level,
Gotcha. That's awesome.
That sounds really fun. Yeah.
And obviously, I just stole stuff from the Forgotten Realms left, right, and center as well, as you did.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Well, sure. I mean, any good artist steals a little bit from, you know,
and then uses it
inspires
for
them.
inspiration.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like all the gods have the same names as the Forgotten Realms. That's inspiration.
Of course. Yeah. Oh man, I wouldn't even try to make an entire pantheon on my own. I wouldn't even know where to start. And I'm good. I'll just use D&D's regular pantheon. Call it good. So then how long have you been writing adventures?
Probably about... Actually, trying to write a proper adventure. The Faerie Coffins was the first one I wrote. It's not the first one I released, but it's the first one I wrote. Because it was actually originally a Call of Cthulhu adventure.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Obviously changed a lot for D&D, which was, again, me just being weirdly full of hubris. I was going to run a Call of Cthulhu adventure for a con just because I sort of agreed to do it. And then, rather than trying to run a module, having never run Call of Cthulhu before, I was like, I can write a Call of Cthulhu adventure. So I did. And I got really good feedback off of that. There was actually, the guy Dave who ran it was really supportive and like an encouraging guy. And he was like, you should try publishing something. And I was like, okay, and I did. But I changed it to D&D just because I like D&D better. Like, Call of Cthulhu's got his own stuff, but D&D is just where I live,
Yeah.
And now, I could have sworn I just saw you tweet that, did Faerie Coffin just now surpass and is now a silver seller?
It went silver just earlier on today. Yeah.
Awesome. That's sweet.
Got that 101st sale it is, yeah. So
congrats on that. That's great.
Yeah, very exciting that. Not something I was expecting a few months in, but yeah.
So then we were talking about inspiration. Where did you get inspiration for the Faerie Coffins? And I mean, I guess the whole series, because you have a whole series of Fae central themed adventures, right?
Yeah. The series is called The Groves of Nunos, or you can also pronounce it Nunos, but that's hard. So, but yeah, the series is basically about this ancient Fae who tried to kill early civilization, and he's been slowly breaking out of his prison the whole time, and he's just starting to get to the point where he's exerting influence again. It's going to end with the party having to deal with him, obviously. It can't really end any other way, But yeah, the inspiration for the Faerie Coffins specifically came from the Faerie Coffins, which are a real thing in Edinburgh, near where I live. They're these small, really creepy wooden dolls that were found hidden in this little cave in this hill called Arthur's Seat, just outside Edinburgh. They'd been built over the course of I think it was 50 odd years, but clearly by the same person and dressed up in, at the time, contemporary clothing and placed in these small coffins. And they never found out what the reason for them existing was, or who made them, or anything.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, the character art that you guys had in the newly updated Faerie Coffins PDF file, I kind of screenshotted and made them into tokens for the Roll20 game. But yeah, those things look scary.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's DM's Guild creative resource. Like, anybody who is making stuff can get that specific bit of art for free on DM's Guild. It's called the Wicker Man or something, yeah. But yeah, so for the Call of Cthulhu thing, it was in Edinburgh Museum where the Faerie Coffins actually are and all that stuff. And then Sir Nunos was like an elder god in Cthulhu style. And then
gotcha.
Yeah, I just sort of D&Dified it, added dryads, added a gnome, all that stuff,
Yeah, all the good D&D stuff.
I don't think I've ever really played with a whole lot of Fae stuff in 5e either, so it's definitely a lot of brand new territory for me to enjoy. So yeah, I did enjoy that.
There's less Fae stuff in 5e than there has been. Like, you see, previous editions had like the Fae Player's Handbook and all that sort of stuff. I really quite enjoy Fae stuff because obviously it's based on like Irish and Scottish mythology, a lot of it, which is where I'm from. So I enjoy all that. But yeah, no, it's good fun.
That's cool. How long did it take you to write the Faerie Coffins? Like, from start to finish, like you started writing to you published it. How long? Even even like when you transferred it from Call of Cthulhu?
From transferring it from Call of Cthulhu, probably about 3 months and about a month and a half to write the original. Although there was a month period in that where I wrote a Spelljammer adventure, so probably about 2 months altogether. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I was actually going to talk about that. The Spelljammer one, that one is Black Vines of Night, right? And you have that on your DM's Guild profile. That's a one-shot adventure for level 12 to 14 characters. Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's something I want to do more of, is more content for high-level characters, because I see a lot of people don't like high-level D&D. DMs in particular seem to get quite upset about it, because they'll set up a whole encounter and then their party polymorphs the villain or whatever, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas I love high-level D&D. I think it's fantastic. Like, as a DM, I really enjoyed trying to find ways to somehow threaten these little demigods who are running around my world, you know, and just doing whatever they wanted. So I set out to make a sort of higher-level one-shot. It's tier 3 rather than tier 4. I want to do some tier 4 stuff. But yeah, it was basically, I was reading about Atropos, and there was this whole thing about how he destroyed the planet Glyph, and then I went into a total deep dive reading about all that, and I was like, I must write an adventure here, because I was doing the RPG Writers Workshop, you know, that thing. And I was originally planning on finishing off the Faerie Coffins, but I decided in the spirit of the thing, you're supposed to do an adventure start to finish in a month, and I was like, okay, I'll do this instead. So
Gotcha. Well, that's super interesting.
I mean, I can totally speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for Johnny as well in this, but if you do get around to doing a tier 4 adventure, I know that we'd probably both be very interested in playing it, so.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a tier 4 adventure, like, I'd love to get something that'll actually threaten the party. Like, I ran stuff at level 20, and I did break the game a bit because it was my first time doing it. They had way too powerful items from like level 5, but so they were just overpowered little dudes. But like, the only thing that threatened them properly was the BBEG, who I homebrewed and had over 1,000 HP, and Tiamat. Literal Tiamat, they had to just escape from Tiamat. But otherwise, they steamrolled everything.
Mm-hmm. I experienced that too. I think I gave them at one point they were level 4. That's right. And I gave them the Deck of Many Things. And one of my players kept pulling cards until they got the moon for wishes. And they got 2 wishes. The first wish was, I wish that the next 5 cards that I pulled is the sun. And so every single person in the party bumped up to level 9 and got a crazy magic item. So I was like, all right. And I had this entire thing planned and ready to go. And I was just like, take that, throw it in the trash, and let's start something new.
No, I remember the Deck of Many Things is such a risky item. But like, I had a hag who her whole thing was she'll answer any question truthfully, but you have to pull a card first. And every player pulled a card, and every single one just got like, oh, here's a magic item. Oh, you have like a squire, you know, and all that stuff. Not totally amazing stuff, but like halfway decent things. And then I remember the wee elf ranger, super excited, like, oh, let's see what I get. Gets flames. You know, just a fiend is now your enemy.
Oh,
and
man.
Just the look at his face, I felt so bad.
That sounds very similar to what happened to my half-elf, or no, it was a wood elf ranger. It's my first character that I actually was playing D&D with, and it was the same instance where he had the Deck of Many Things. The very first card I drew, I was teleported into one of the other planes.
Oh, no.
To an unknown spot. So I just poofed away.
What? Just gone?
First character ever.
Character ever. I literally,
gone.
Wow.
Didn't even make it.
That was my first adventure too. Like, we went into the cave where we found the Deck of Many Things, and I came out, we pulled the card, and poof. So
Didn't even make the level up.
I mean, it's a good lesson, I guess, in how things can go sometimes. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I was kind of interested in is specifically how you do your writing. Like, if there's any of our listeners that actually do want to get into making adventures and publishing them, I wanted to know if there was any sort of like writing rituals that you have. Like, do you play certain types of music? Do you have certain types of drinks? Do you have like a place that you go when you write? Is there anything that you do specifically to get you in that writing mood or that like type of setup where you're thinking about the Fae or something like that?
I've tried a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, basically, the thing that gets me in the writing mood is just writing. And that's like, I will waste an hour or 2 hours producing just the worst, most meaningless nonsense and writing the same sentence over and over again and erasing it. But generally, music's pretty good. Something without lyrics, I find if it has lyrics, I can't write. And I've tried doing it with like podcasts or something else going on, but it's just at my computer and just trying to grind through the first few hours where I do produce nothing but just the worst ideas. Like, oh, okay, how about a goblin, but he's secretly Asmodeus? No, okay.
Okay, we'll throw that out.
And it just goes on like that for a while, and then eventually it starts working, and then like 5 hours pass, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I've actually got some.
It's dark outside, and you're like, oh shit! It's been 7 hours. Okay. I haven't eaten since 12 in the morning, but I guess, okay, so I guess I'm going to work now.
Like, I think one big thing, especially for people who are starting, is that people do, like, mythologize the process of writing a lot. And I think that's really unhelpful, especially to new people, because they work on it and they feel like if they don't have like a 9-hour stretch where they produce 20,000 words and it just falls out of them organically onto the page and is ready for publishing, like some people can do that, but almost no one can. Like,
I would also say that some people are experienced people that have been doing it for a long time. I know that for me, I do that exact same thing where like there are times where I cannot get into it unless I start going and I set up like a good amount of time to then finally get into that mindset and then start writing.
Yeah, and like other times it just doesn't work for whatever reason. You're just like, you're stressed that day, although so sometimes the right amount of stress is actually a good thing. Maybe you're too relaxed. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff, and actually pushing through that I think is much more important than like, yeah, there's just 1,000,000,001 people who have tried writing and not been instantly amazing at it and have therefore abandoned it. And I think that's a real shame, you know?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest takeaways that I hear from you is just to keep going. Just keep trying, and then sooner or later you'll get something that's worth it.
Yeah, because this is not, like, these things are not my first attempt. There is some bad abandoned projects. It's some pretty good abandoned projects that I just wasn't vibing with, but that happened, like, maybe 8 or 9 before I actually felt confident enough publishing something, and even then it was terrifying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet. That's a huge step to take, to like release your work out to the world and just wait for like the negative comments to hit. Like that's...
Yeah, because there's a rating system, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Anyone who gets it can go 1 star, you know?
Exactly.
And, yeah.
I mean, even like just leading up to our stream, because this was the second one that we did. The first one we did Drow Hard back in the end of December, and just leading up to those streams, like just having the anxiety of going to be doing the stream, even though there's not going to be very many people watching at our current state that we're at right now. It definitely, I know both when I was DMing the last one and Johnny doing this one, we both were having that just kind of nervous feeling about it.
Yeah. But what I love about DMing yours was that once I was in it, I was just in the D&D trance. Like I totally forgot that we were even streaming at some points, because it was just me and my friends hanging out and playing D&D, you know, so.
Yeah, which was a real nice vibe for your stream, actually. I enjoyed that, because it did feel like sometimes, like, and it's not a bad thing, it's a different style, but a lot of real plays can feel pretty performative, whereas I really enjoyed, it felt like you were performing for each other, like you do in D&D, which was a lot of fun. You're like, a lot of very strange behavior going on, which always emerges in D&D, you know? Like I was speaking with another guy who writes adventures and stuff for DM's Guild, and he said you don't really need to write comedy in D&D, because the players will provide comedy even in the most serious situation. And it's so true.
Yeah. I think that one shot that the stream that we did it had its own like other line of comedy with Daniel and Daniel and Ryan, their characters going at each other for no reason.
Yeah, it was very funny. Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
Bovik, I'm so glad Bovik got a big like hero time to shine at the end as well, because I was feeling real bad for Bovik. He kept like getting frozen, and he kept getting all the stinking clouds and all that stuff. And like there was this through thing where you're being manipulated into breaking down doors, and you were just sort of going with it, which I find really funny.
Yeah, Ryan knew it was a bad idea, but Bovik didn't.
Do you remember what Bovik's intelligence score was, out of interest?
It was like 8. I min-maxed Bovik super hard. I had, I think like a 16 or 17 in strength, and then like a 14 to 16 in dexterity, and then same with constitution. I just minimized all of my important scores.
Yeah, has to be done, especially for a one-shot.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a big fan of min-maxing.
The Faerie Coffins is only the first of an adventure series, like we were saying earlier. So after this one, I saw that you have released Court of the Pixie Queen, which is the second one. And then also, more recently, you just released The Old Host. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about each of those.
Well, Court of the Pixie Queen, first of all, would be super interesting if those characters ever ran it, because there are 2 starts for that. There's one where you either arrive at Peony's home as heroes, with Peony in tow, or a bunch of pixies come and kidnap you because they think you maybe murdered the princess of their court, who is Peony. So,
it would be the latter.
Something for Bovik to look forward to,
right.
In that particular reality. But basically, that one is it's a murder mystery in a tree stump, which is also a palace for pixies. The characters get shrunk down to miniature size, so pixies are like medium in that adventure, which makes them a lot stronger because they immediately get that HP boost and all that sort of stuff. The Queen of the Pixies gets murdered, and just after she does, the characters are in bed at this point. The DM chooses one member of the party, and a shapeshifter disguised as that member of the party bursts into the party's room holding a bloody dagger, and then disappears, dropping the dagger on the floor, and then guards run in.
That sounds awesome.
So the party needs to solve the murder, or they are, found guilty of it.
That is amazing. That sounds like a great adventure just to run. It sounds like a lot of potential for randomness as well, to be the same size as pixies. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, randomness in the mechanics is deliberately set up, actually, where there's a whole bunch of NPCs who are potentially suspects, because basically all the pixies were accounted for when the murder was going on. It's just like there's a dryad, there's a Wilden, which is I think from an earlier edition I added in. There's a friendly troll, and all these kinds of creatures. And the idea is the shapeshifter is one of those. But the DM can either pick or roll randomly to determine who it is, and that changes the clues they find and all that. So you can play it a couple of times and have different answers. And then there's one ultimately responsible thing, but I won't spoil it.
Right, of course. So then, what about The Old Host? That's the most recent one, which the cover, by the way, is absolutely beautiful, and in the most terrifying way.
Yeah, it's a stock art from Shutterstock, actually. That stuff. The Old Host was a real challenge, because originally I wanted it to be a sort of like you're being hunted by one of Sununus's people in the Feywild. Because if you're playing this series and you successfully solve the murder, whoever's in charge afterwards is like, okay, well, there's some Sununu stuff going on. We'll send you off to the Feywild to investigate it, but you arrive in this autumnal forest instead. And then the party pretty much immediately gets killed by a much more powerful fake character, and you all wake up as undead afterwards. And the like hook for this forest is it's autumnal, so it's autumnal Feywild in between life and death, so nothing can actually die there. You just come back as an undead and you deteriorate each time. So eventually you end up catatonic if you die too many times. So the idea is you've got to lift the curse and defeat this dude who is hunting you. And he's way too powerful. He's like CR 12, I believe, for a level 3 or 4 party. So you need to gather allies. You can set traps to do the whole kind of predator thing. It's about 51 pages long, which is a lot longer than the other ones because
Yeah, definitely not a one shot.
Yeah, no, we talked about this actually. It's like 6 sessions, I would estimate, to get through it. It's a long.
It sounds like a really cool, like, slow build too, though. Like, kind of like Curse of Strahd, where it's like, you know what the end goal is. It's to kill Strahd, but it's everything before that makes that battle just that much more exciting. And I think that's kind of what it sounds like for this.
I mean, yeah, that's the hope. Obviously, you always look at the really successful ones to try and work out why they worked. And Curse of Strahd is, I think, the gold standard. I've really enjoyed a lot of other adventures I've gone through as a player, but yeah, Curse of Strahd just has it. And I think it's because of that character, that one overriding thing. So I tried to do a little bit something similar, but for the Feywild, And actually, like, Faerie Coffins was deliberately designed to be kind of like Death House in Curse of Strahd, but for the Feywild. So there's been a lot of Curse of Strahd.
We definitely made those comparisons after the stream. So you were very successful with that motif.
Oh, I'm glad.
Well, I know you and I were talking about your future plans on your series. I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk about any of your future plans, maybe give like a bit of a teaser as to what's to come.
Yeah, sure. The next one is going to be called March of the Sovereign. I mentioned it at the end of the Old Host, which is basically about a nature spirit called Sovereign Elk who is going to cause some destruction, but if he gets killed, it's going to cause a lot of damage to the natural world. So the players basically need to work out how to deal with that. I'm sort of, at the moment, trying to lower my ambitions, because my original plan for it involved entirely detailing the city of Silvery Moon, because that's where it's set around. I'm trying to talk myself out of doing that, because it'll take a very long time. So I have no idea. I have no idea if I'm going to do the art or not. And then the final one is just called the Grove of Sununos. That's the finale, where you actually go to his demiplanar prison. The hook with that is he is physically there in amber when you first arrive, and the amber can be opened from the outside at any time, but to leave he needs to be defeated. So the players get to decide when to trigger this final boss fight. The sort of hub area has him in it, and he can speak to the characters, they can speak with him, and there's various mini bosses to defeat, magical items to collect, all that stuff to make you stronger. Again, very Curse of Strahd style. But there's also, one thing I'm not quite wanting to reveal how it works yet. There's a timer, a sort of ticking countdown, and you want to defeat him before that timer comes to an end. So there's that sort of dual pressure I'm trying to go for, but that one is in very early development at the moment. It's going to be a wee while before I do another one.
Right.
The next thing I'm going to release is going to be a druid subclass, which I'm just doing pay what you want as a wee sort of thank you thing. It's going to be called the Circle of Ruin or the Circle of Devastation. I've not decided yet.
Interesting.
It's kind of an evil aligned druid. Like, right. You can play it as a aligned one as well, but it's very much based around the idea of the Old Host and the reclamation of nature getting rid of civilization, basically. So bad guy druids is the idea.
That's cool. That's actually really, really interesting, and I think that has a lot of potential in a bunch of... God, you could even... Again, you could do it in Curse of Strahd. I mean, there's plenty of ruins in Barovia to become that druid, and there's even, side quests through the druids that you could totally be... I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of one of the big things that made me want to do an adventure like this is druids make amazing bad guys, NPCs. The spells they have are like Storm of Vengeance, for example, is a pretty bad combat spell. But what it's really good for is wiping a village of NPC peasants off the map and destroying all their buildings, which is fine if you want to be a bad guy. Great BBEG spell though. So expect to see that at some point in later adventures.
I mean, druids too, just in general, have a lot of the area of effect combat too, which would work very well against a party of adventurers. So yeah, absolutely good villains.
Yeah, and a lot of summoning spells as well. You know, druids can really, like, if played properly, and probably because they're an NPC given a health boost, they could be extremely dangerous to a party of adventurers.
And not only that, I mean, God, you could have a druid just watching over the party all the time through their wild shape and know exactly what's going on because they still have the same mental capacity. Like, that would be terrifying. And then again, I'm going to compare it to Curse of Strahd, because Strahd can shape change. And, you know, he's like, he could be anywhere at any time. So
yeah, I mean, that is some of the best stuff in Curse of Strahd, and it's so incidental, but it's the stuff that makes him really stand out. Is like, you're climbing up a ladder, and as you reach the top, you see Strahd appear and he just pushes it down. You know, that little stuff, it doesn't matter. You take like 1d6 falling damage, but it inconveniences you and you hate him now. It's personal, you know?
And a few times after that, then you're like, holy crap, this guy is everywhere, which just adds that extra horror into there. Like, you don't know if you can talk and be safe. You don't know if you can walk around and be safe. It's great. And I think that a druid could totally fit that bill for sure, especially with
a circle of druids, especially.
Yeah. So, well, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. That was amazing, and we had so much fun playing your one shot. It was a blast.
Yes, I absolutely loved it. Bovik enjoyed breaking down the doors. He felt so bad breaking all of the little
display cases
and all the animals that were stuffed.
Yeah.
Oh no, thank you very much. It was a real thrill watching it get played out like that. And like, I was a bit worried going in, like, I was sort of like, I wonder how this is actually gonna go, you know, but I felt like it went really well. And like, yeah, thanks so much for doing such a good job putting it on and all that. It was a real pleasure, the whole thing.
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us on this interview. Hopefully we shared some insight into how to run the Faerie Coffins, which also will be having a link in the description that you can follow and make sure to support Jack. And we'll also have a link to our actual play video where we run through the Faerie Coffins like we were saying. So go ahead and make sure to check that out. But yeah, thank you guys again for joining us. So make sure to level up and we'll see you next time.